Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy Dani Mantilla y estamos aquí en Kinótico, en el Festival de San Sebastián, un día más haciendo entrevistas con el quién es el quién del talento nacional e internacional, siempre en compañía de los amigos de Fred Film Radio. Hoy tenemos una invitada de excepción, la directora Kitty Green, la conocisteis por The Assistant y está de vuelta luchando por la Concha de Oro con The Royal Hotel. Kitty, welcome to Spain, Kinótico and San Sebastián.
Thank you so much.
Are you enjoying the festival, the city?
Yes, I'm enjoying the city. I haven't seen many movies, but I've had a good time walking around the city and going for a swim and things like that. Yeah.
You're doing it nice then.
Tourism, yeah.
Did you did talk in Tabacalera? How was that?
Yeah, that was great. It was feeling like a good group of people, and they were all interested and engaged, and it felt like a nice community there. Yeah.
And what kind of feedback did you get in that conversation? Because The Assistant was a film that was released directly in filming, that then it found its audience, and I think it's still the best film about what happened in Hollywood and what's maybe still happening.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I don't know. It was interesting. I like to encourage younger women to make movies, and that group seemed like it was filled with young women in that talk. So I felt that was great. We could have a conversation about the challenges of that, and that's what The Assistant's about. It's about the problems and the structure that's getting in the way of young women being able to rise in the workforce to become, the biggest producers and things like that. So yeah.
Now you are presenting your second narrative movie. What was in this story by Lina and Steph? That you wanted to make a movie, your own movie, but not documentary, a fiction now take.
Yeah, there's something about how strong they were against this sort of real Australian rough men, this outback kind of terror, I guess. And these girls held themselves with a very nice strength. And so there's something in that I felt like, okay, we can explore this, we can see this sort of bad aspects of the behavior, bad kind of culture problems with the culture, but also explore it through the eyes of two strong women, essentially, who are finding themselves and going on their own journey.
Seguimos ahora hablando con Kitty Green. Vamos a ver un avance de El superviviente de Auschwitz, la película de Barry Levinson que ya está en cines.
Me interesa su historia. Soy el superviviente de Auschwitz, pero nadie sabe cómo lo consiguió. La chica que dejé en mi país no sabe que estoy vivo.
Quiero convertirte en una atracción.
¡Traidor! Necesito ganar.
No puedes, pero puedes sobrevivir.
¿Merece la pena luchar por ella?
The Assistant was really claustrophobic in a way. It happened in an office. We have the outback here. It's the total opposite. The film is quite outdoorsy, but how was going from one thing to the opposite?
I haven't thought about it that way, but that's a nice way to put it. Thank you. I'm going to use that. But yeah, it is a very vast landscape, Australia, but lots of space, really. But really, there's something terrifying in how empty it is and how isolated they are, and that's where you find fear, So it was very different set of circumstances, but they both induce like a similar kind of fear in the character and tension in the characters, essentially.
It's really interesting because there's nothing happening, and at the same time, anything could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's all about the threat of what could happen. And so it's looking at these small things and thinking, like microaggressions, we call them, but is that a joke? Is that a threat?
Yeah.
Is he going to kill me, or is he just making jokes? So it's like the film exists on that line. It dances on that line without crossing it, essentially.
I love how you approach that kind of microaggression, of even aggression in your films. Do you think you were sure about talking about the way women perceive violence directly, indirectly? Like we are now, like it's the normal thing.
I mean, hopefully this film is trying to get women to say no early on. So if they sense it, they can say no and stand up for themselves, so it never has to ever get to that level where it is violent. You know what I mean? We're trying to prevent it from escalating. So to me, that's really important as a step. Rather than showing the violence, we don't need to see it anymore. We know what it looks like. It's trying to say no quicker and earlier, yeah.
And if you show it all the time, it's like, it's the normal thing. You normalize it.
Exactly, and that's what we're trying to do.
It's
yeah.
not good. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the social dynamics of alcohol in the movie, because I think it's something that all of us have internalized in one way or another. For example, I don't really drink, and people always have an opinion about that.
I mean, yeah, it's not so much about drinking culture necessarily, because drinking, I'm not saying drinking is bad. It's about when that behavior gets, and it's a little alcohol helps, when behavior gets a little out of control and it's hard to stop it. So it's about looking at sort of the darker aspects of drinking culture in Australia, essentially.
I know that Hesire has asked you about that in the press conference, but last night when we were commenting your film, all of us journalists were talking about how you do in a way horror. In The Assistant here, do you see yourself doing a film like that, or do you like to use elements of the genre but doing your own thing?
I think so. I mean, I'm looking at working. The problem with things like horror is they're often very violent, and they're often very explicitly violent and exploitative and problematic. And I'm trying to sort of shift that by exploring things I think are interesting in a more of a delicate way, I guess, you know?
You say that the Royal Hotel is like a metaphor for patriarchy?
Oh yeah, for sure. In some ways, yeah. But it's the film's doing more than just sort of tearing apart the patriarchy. It's looking at like little moments of little cultural moments, I guess, in some ways.
We don't want to spoil too much about it. People have to watch the movie. It's a really, well, I was going to say joyful, but not like in a literal way. But
no,
it's a movie you like to watch. At least I did.
I think so, and I think it's a movie that my crew like to watch again and again. I feel like it's sort of the movie where you can kind of enjoy it, but it does get pretty dark and pretty heavy towards the back.
And did you enjoy doing things like the ending, for example, like where you can go, let go?
Yeah, a little. It was nice and cathartic to kind of explode and blow things up and have some fun, and it was good.
It's a pity that we can't have Julia Garner. Well, also Jessica, of course, but Julia is like your partner right now.
Yeah.
In crime. What means Julia for you professionally?
I don't know. It's hard to tell how much. I always say, like, it's hard to tell how much she's bringing, how much I'm bringing. We're so entwined now. We're like one person. So it's always difficult to know how to describe the partnership, I think, because it's we barely need to communicate at this point. We know each other so well. I can just give her a look, and she often knows what that means. It's like, oh no, yeah. So it works in a different way. So it's a very special connection. That's for sure.
The original story happened in Australia. Did you go there to inspire to see how is the outback in the flesh?
I've been before. I'm Australian, and my granddad actually owned a pub like the pub in the film. So I've got connections to it. I knew the world. I also have a co-writer who had lived in regional Australia a lot, so he brought another aspect of it. But definitely when we were scouting, we spent a lot of time in Australia to make the movie. That's for sure. Yeah.
The film hasn't opened here with the public, but you did screenings in Telluride where you did the world premiere. What kind of reaction have you gotten from the people? Not the reviews. Like, what are you surprised by what people see in the movie?
I'm surprised by how many people can relate to it, which is interesting. And people come up to me and they say, oh, I worked in a pub or I worked in a bar in America. And they said, and it was exactly like my life. And I was thinking, how is this? It's very specifically Australian to me. So it's interesting that people internationally are understanding it and identifying with it. It means that it's a broader thing than I thought, more universal than I thought. You know,
I was reading about the film in Letterboxd, and I remember watching exactly that, like that comments, like that was my life being a bartender with guys.
Yeah.
Because it's always special, like uncomfortable when you see a woman surrounded by men. I like in a film, there is something in your brain that automatically links you with something, or in your life, or in a movie. I think, for example, in The Silence of Lambs, with the shot of Jodie Foster surrounded by men really, really higher than her, and there's something I think, in our culture that says, be careful.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to show too much, I think, exactly. That's why you don't really need the violence. You need the threat of the violence is enough, because we all know what that looks like, and we've seen it before. That's what I'm looking at, these kind of images.
You've done a few documentaries, now you're doing narrative films. Do you believe you are in this state of your career, like, I'm not doing documentaries right now, I enjoyed this part. This freedom in a way, is it freedom?
Well, yeah, there's more creative control, I think. It's the opposite of freedom almost. I get more control in the fiction movies than I do in documentary. You have to stay wide, you have to cover things the way they naturally fold. I like to kind of be specific about what I'm exploring and hone in on that. So I think that's what I can do in fiction films. But yeah.
I guess that when you're doing nonfiction, you have to be open-minded because you don't know what the
Yes.
subject is going to give you.
Yeah.
What kind of filmmaker are you when you're doing something like this film? It's like you like to create things on the spot, or you are really
I'm pretty precise, but it's mostly because I don't have a big budget, so I never have a big schedule, so I have only a limited amount of time to get what I need. So if you only have a few hours on that set, you have to know exactly what you need and what you want, and so I'm very specific about that. But then the actors bring things that surprise you always, and so that's the kind of more kind of creative aspect of it, is whatever they bring to the process. Yeah.
you have had more money with this film or a bigger budget. Do you want more to
I still didn't have very much, and it was really hard, and we shot it in 25 days, and it wasn't enough time, and we needed more time, and we were always being kicked out of the set and told, no, you got to go, keep going, next set scene, and it was always heartbreaking to me. So I'd love to have just a bit more room to play and a bit more time to mess things up and try things that are a little more bold, but it's often because of the schedule I'm have to be pretty specific. And
The other day I was talking to the director of Fingernails, which was always also in Telluride, and he talked that he made his first movie with a $250,000, and then he had 10 for the following one, and he could like bring back ideas that he couldn't do in Apples, and then he do it this time.
I mean, he got a lot more money for fingernails than he did for apples. I didn't get that much more money. You know what I mean? I'm not on his level. So I'm jealous that he gets to do certain things that I couldn't do. But I think, yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's nice to have a little bit more room to play. We had to we built a set because we actually couldn't afford to shoot out in the outback for that long. So we had to build a set. But we were able to make it look really real and authentic with that sort of budget. So yeah, we achieved a lot on the small budget we had.
And do you know what is your next film going to be?
No, I have some ideas, and I need to sit down in a room by myself and figure them out. You know, it's all bubbling away, and I'll get there soon. Yeah.
One of our sponsors is Filmin, the company that released your first film here in Spain. They want to know what movie changed your life and why.
I think it was Chantal Ackerman's Jean Dielman, which I think is a big influence on The Assistant. And you can kind of see, because that film looks at rhythm and duration, and it is really bold in the way it tells its story. And it was also just a woman's story about being a woman in the world. And it was political, but not in a way that was off-putting. And so, yeah, there's a lot in that movie that inspired me to do what I do, that's for sure, yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Giti. Please enjoy San Sebastián.
Thank you.
Surf a lot.
Yes, I will.
And, well, if you
Thank
can
you.
watch a movie, it's good. But
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, ya sabéis, tenéis que ir a ver The Royal Hotel cuando se estrene en España, que ya tiene distribución. Y seguimos aquí hablando de cine con talento de todos los lugares del mundo. Ella es de Australia. En kinótico.es, la primera con K, la segunda con C.